Hi everyone, old and new. Welcome back to Season 2. I can't believe it. Season 2 of Lifestyle Etiquette Unraveled, a fireside chat series with global experts and opinion leaders coming from all corners of the world with one goal: sharing, inspiring, and educating everything lifestyle, etiquette, soft skills, and global cultural awareness related. I'm Juliana. Today, I'm joined by a well-known high-performance coach of 3 different athletes in different stages and situations of their career. With his meanwhile 10 years of experience as a senior performance coach at Hinsa Company, he's one of the best human engineers, providing a high-performance fuel for a high-performance machine. Being one of the premier coaches in F1, he's been the cornerstone to Sebastian Vettel's journey in the last 7 years. Not only this, he has also spent his early years in Africa. He was a footballer in the Finnish top league and loves mountain biking when not on the F1 track. Let's discover more about and welcome Antti Kontsas. Hello, Antti.
Thank you, Juliana. That's a nice introduction, and I never got it. That's high. I would say. I feel like a privileged person now.
You are such a special person. I'm so happy to win you here. We are all so excited. I want you to talk about yourself, and you have a quite interesting background and also your education. I think many do not know that, what you studied, and your whole background before you came actually there where you are today. Just give us a brief intro about who is Antti Kontsas.
Okay, I'll try my best. So yeah, my name is Antti. I'm from Finland, but like Juliana said, for the last 11 years now, I've lived in Switzerland. And all of this time I've been working for a company called Hinsa Performance, like you said.
Yeah.
And the last 8 of them now already with Sebastian, and before that I worked for a couple of other drivers.
Yes.
And so yeah, that's sort of where I started and where I'm now. But for the middle, I could perhaps explain my path a little bit by a couple of sort of themes that are important for me. So firstly, I think the one thing that has led me my whole life has been sports. So I've always had a huge passion for sports and performance as a whole.
Yes.
So I used to be a footballer, like you mentioned. I played football in Finland. I really tried my best, and this field I trained. I was a really hard trainer, hard worker, and also it got me some reasonable results. I got to play in the Finnish junior national team and the top league, like you mentioned. But yeah, I also struggled with really a lot of injuries, and then at one point I realized my time was probably better spent outside of the pitch rather than on the pitch, and that's when I then researched.
Because of the injuries.
Yeah, it was. I had 3 operations in 2 years, and it was a cycle of injuries, and I could not get out of it. And I realized that okay, I'm not enjoying this as much as I used to be. So then I researched what's the best place in the world to study sports science, and I ended up in England, in Loughborough. I found it was a really nice place, and I did my degrees there. So I have now 3 degrees in total. I have a bachelor in sports science, I have a master in sports management, and another master in strength and conditioning.
So all very, very sports related.
Yes. And then, like I said, now I've then ended up working in sport as well. So this has been definitely, it's the one thing that's it's like a red line on my life to date.
Yes.
But then the other thing that I've also always been interested in, you mentioned already my past in Africa, but related to this has been sort of international relations and actually people in general. the appreciation of how different or similar we are. Because like I said, I was 3 years old. I was 3 years old, me too, when we moved as a family to Africa. So I've been lucky with my family. We've gone to several places and I've got to experience different lifestyles, different people, different cultures, understand the needs of different people in different countries, how they're very much similar, but then also in some places different, and how people view life differently. And yeah, we also had a real lot of international guests at our home because of my father's job. When I was a young kid, I played football on the backyard with all kinds of people from different people, different countries all the time. So I think I've got from a young age a certain appreciation that what actually exists in the world. What is the perspective of the problems and these kind of things. So this is something that's also a big part of me. And I actually almost went to study also international relations. It was between that and sports. I was really hard thinking which one I want, and I'm still happy because at the moment what I do, I find that as much as it's about sports, it's still so much about people and understanding people. So I think I'm still doing that. And also the world of F1 is it's a very complex and interesting world in the sense that there's so many stakeholders, so many interests, and so many directions that you've been pulled towards. And then you need to understand the needs of different people to manage there. And I think my past definitely helps me in this.
Definitely. That's why I have you here, just the perfect person for my area. Many people do not know about your time in Africa, so it's actually quite interesting you mentioned that. Really nice. Okay.
Yes, no, so yeah, exactly. We were in Zambia when I was 3, and I used to go to the school there already, learned English there, and was a really, I didn't understand how meaningful it was at the time, but I'm really thankful for my parents now that they took the chance and also wanted to see something new for themselves. And yeah, it's definitely been a blessing for me as well.
Exactly. And today you are a performance coach of F1 industry. I would like to come back to this, this word performance coach. I think, but I may be wrong. Please clarify if it's like the umbrella of different elements, areas. And in order for people to understand or maybe have a wrong idea, what is a performance coach? Can you unravel misconceptions about that? In your case, you are specialized in sports, but in general, a performance coach, what is that? What do they do?
Okay, that's a good question because there is a lot of sort of misunderstandings around this. So I think the easiest way to explain it is to compare it to sort of another model. So you have a more traditional model is where you have an athlete. And then the athlete might have around him several people. So he might have if he's a runner, for example, he might have a running coach, then he might have a physiotherapist, he might have some kind of physical coach for the strength training, then he might have a nutritionist, like a physio, I said, or a nutritionist, psychologist. He has all these people around him. But none of them necessarily have a lead on everything, but rather the athlete is hearing from different places, different information, and he is very much running the show. Depending, it's not always, but this is a black and white example. So, but that's one way to look at it. Or then there's the sort of way that we at Hintsa, how we organize this, where you have the athlete, and then you have the performance coach, which is then, for example, in this time, me. And then behind me, I have a number of specialists that I talk to regularly. So then rather than the athlete having to put the picture together and understand, okay, what is the best compromise for me? Then he has somebody like a coach like me who can do a lot of the background work and understand what is actually going on. So I can talk to, when there's a problem, I can talk to a nutritionist, I can talk to a doctor, I can talk to a physiologist about these things. Okay, what is the best way to solve this problem? And you get a more fuller picture, and I do the background work rather than the athlete meant to do it. Of course, there's sometimes connection also between the support and the athlete, but it's sort of, it deloads the athlete quite a lot, and of course puts the more responsibility on me on this. And I find it's a efficient way, but it's of course because there's only one discussion point for the athlete, and I'm doing the work. So, but that's a sort of broad categorization of how it works.
I love that, the way you actually pictured it. It's easier to understand, and it's so interesting. And as you said, it's efficient. It makes sense. The athlete should focus on what he does best, and the rest, you literally take that burden of him. But you also have to understand his needs, isn't it? To know, okay, I'll need to pull now, the way you just now described Hinsa company. So you have all those different people specialized in different area, but you have to understand your client, where are his needs, and how do I get exactly that specific need for him.
Absolutely. And it's, of course, it's not as much as it's my understanding, but it's a lot of dialogue between. There has to be discussion. It's the discussion together with the athlete and the coach. The athlete is the one person who has to feel well. He's the one who's performing, and he's the star. And it's just we all try to. Otherwise, we try to help him and find the best compromise for him. That's what it looks like. But I think to dig it a little bit deeper on this, I think it's important to also understand where performance comes from, because then it explains the coaching process.
Please,
a lot better. So because I'm quite frustrated sometimes to read, especially on the sort of normal newspapers, or it's easy to write about quick fixes.
Oh yes, and nowadays
quick fixes are also the sort of people they often want to also read these things that, okay, or this diet fixes my every problem, or this sleep is the most important thing in the world, or as much as it is important, but it's not the most one, is not the only thing. Or then there's this trick or this medicine, this is going to fix everything. And that's just not the way it is. You have to view that they're actually all important things as part of the performance puzzle. Sleep is extremely important, nutrition is important, training is important, everything, they're all important, but you need to understand how they interrelate. What is the hierarchy? What is for this specific sport, the hierarchy is probably here. These are the important things. And the way I look at performance normally is that I like to divide it into different layers. So I like to normally put a bottom layer, which is like a foundational layer. This is sort of foundation of a house. So it has to be solid. And this includes things like general good nutrition habits, so general high quality nutrition. Then it includes high quality sleep. What are you doing for sleep and recovery? What are you doing for life management? What is your scheduling, your weekly calendar? What is it looking like? Is it organized, structured, or is it a complete mess? What's happening with the training side of things? What's happening? What is your general health issue? What about your mental health, your emotional well-being? So if these are the foundational aspects, so they sit on the bottom, they allow the top stuff to happen. So looking at, for example, Formula One, then the second layer is the specific skills. That's in Formula One, for example, a lot of the information processing, because it's such a cognitive sport. It's almost like a knowledge worker. So they need to have skills to have deal with multiple things at the same time. That's called attentional capacity.
Please, yes, give us more, because people said they just sit. Is that sports? You just said cognitive,
Yeah, and that level you have also several other things. You have the communication skills, because feedback is such an important thing, and then other things like this. And then the top level is the performance layer. That's where you have your actually specific performance related things. So you're driving your sensory motor skills for your pedaling and steering, and your race strategy, racecraft, several things on this, specific skills on overtaking, defending. So you're breaking the sport into 3 layers, and you can understand how all these different elements relate to performance, how they affect it. And that's the sort of thing, that's the sort of level of detail where you have to go to understand where performance comes from. Because then when you start looking at let's say, a quick fix, like if it was a nutritional thing or anything else, I have nothing against nutrition. I think it's very important, but it's just a common field where there's so much misunderstanding and confusion. Correct. So it's typical to say that one supplement will change everything, and that's just not the way, because the whole continuum here, and the supplement thing is a small part of the puzzle. It might be a good addition, but it's not everything. And that's the sort of message that I want to get across when talking about performance, that it's just a lot of things come together, and you need to understand how they interrelate. And that's the sort of thing that I try to do in my job.
Wow. This is this is great. I think you are opening our mind at the moment, really. What is performance? That's so great. And you just mentioned already with F1 as an example, which fits to my next question, because this will be now, what does it take to be that performance coach for F1? And you've started already explaining the layers. So, I mean, thanks to Netflix, we've got that little glimpse of what is happening behind the scenes. And not like, nowadays people can just fire quickly on social media their frustration, and we are wondering, oh, why couldn't he win, or why does he do that, why does he do that? Can you give us an idea of what it means to be a coach in this industry?
But I think it comes down to, like I said in the beginning, about the international relations. So yes. I think you have to have an understanding of how the business works, because it's such an important part of Formula One. You need to understand that there are so many stakeholders wanting the time or competing for the interest of the driver. Yeah. And you need to, as a coach, understand where they fall in place. And also, this is not just myself, it's also there's the whole team around the driver. The driver always has a media assistant, and there's different people. So it's not just myself, but as a whole, the team around the driver has to understand how do you balance best the marketing days, how do you balance best the whole package around the year.
Exactly.
And then what is the best way to organize it. So that's one thing for sure, and it's important, because otherwise you get easily lost because you don't understand why some people are asking certain things. But so,
may I ask you, so you need to understand also the business area as a performance coach. You can't just come in and you say, I'm a performance coach and now I can train you. You just mentioned you have to understand also the industry.
I think I would maybe need is a I would just put it this way. I feel it's definitely helped me.
Yeah.
I don't say that everybody must have it, but I find I can tell my story. For example, for me to get to F1, I was a relatively unexperienced coach. I had done my university degrees, but I got a chance. I got lucky, and I got to meet Dr. Aki Hintsa, and he offered me the chance to come in here. And as much as my coaching experience was not so high, I felt that one of the reasons why I did manage to excel in this job was my understanding a little bit about the people and about the stakeholders there. And I think that's just a personal reflection of why I feel it's important. But there's probably some other people who know different things. But I definitely value this one.
I like how you mentioned the balance, that you need to have also understand the balance, because there are so many different interests. If I may ask you the next question, it's not just the balance, but also readjusting expectations. If you are with a client, you've been, accompanying for a while, and there is a change, whether it's a company, it's a corporate company, and there is a change to another company, or in this case, from Ferrari to Aston Martin, how do you prepare your client with all these readjusting new expectations? And as you said, different interests from all corners. How do you bring your client again back to, this new adjustment and leaving the past and looking forward to the future and motivating at the same time? I'm sure it's very, very difficult.
Okay, that's a good question. I think, as you mentioned, it is a lot about it's essentially a changing jobs situation.
Exactly.
So whenever you change a job, I think for all of us at that point, there's the expectation and the sort of just the need to prove yourself.
Yes.
So there's always that aspect of, okay, you need to be delivering the results that are being expected from you. And at the same time, on the other hand, you also have the social likability. You're suddenly working with new people. You need to get to know them. You need to find the best way to work with them. This includes the engineers, the marketing team, everybody in the whole management, everybody. And it's just whenever there's new people, you need to a little bit adjust. So there's of course this element of the situation. But of course for us, it's still a change within Formula One is still a really reasonably small change. So it's everybody knows who Sebastian is, and a couple of people also know myself. So it's not as big of a change. It's not a complete different field. So and
but
also
the car,
yeah,
isn't that a
well,
huge, yeah.
that is one thing, but I think still what I would point out is that F1 is a place where there's so many things that you cannot control.
Yeah.
There's so many elements that you as a driver or as a driver team that you cannot put your hands on.
Yeah.
So in the end, the work at different teams or different places is still very much the same. And as a driver, you must be focusing on the things that you can control, because otherwise you go mad with the amount of information everywhere. There's always more you could look at. There's always more things you could try to get involved with, but ultimately there's enough in being a driver, and you need to work on your process. You need to make sure that you are there on the day at the best possible shape, and that's what it's about. So it's about working. It's about work, and it's about the process, and that's where the focus has to be. So it's not even if it's a different car, the work stays the same.
You wonderful. It's really great. You mentioned at the beginning that you were actually grateful for the upbringing you had, and that at that time you probably didn't understand what that will bring you in life. But today in your work, having these people skills made you even more, being able to read, to understand situations, and to help your clients. And this format is also a lot about, at least for me, very important, about soft skills, people skills. Can you please help us just also to promote these skills? How did soft skills, which role did it play in your job and still play? How important is it?
Oh, it's enormously important, and I mean, I would, as much as it's been an interest of mine, I think it's also something that I have enormous space to improve on, and it's a continuous process to get better at it.
It's a continuous process, yes.
But what you said about a little bit about examples about how to, I think it was this question or the previous one you asked about how to motivate and develop, and what's the role of this. I think one good example of how to motivate someone to actually get buy-in behind what you want to do is that very commonly people focus on a problem.
Yes.
They focus on something that's wrong, and then that becomes the target.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when when the problem is the target, I find it's not always motivating enough. And instead, what I find better is very often turning the target into what is the problem stopping you from doing.
Yes.
So let's take a simple example, and what a very common one in the world, and let's say lower back pain, which really a lot of people in the world suffer from.
Yes.
Say it's you come to see somebody and you want the lower back pain fixed. Okay, that's great. For sure, it's important to have it fixed. But then when you start asking questions about, okay, why, or what is it stopping you from doing? You might be saying things like, I can't lift my kid from the floor. I'm not able to play squash on every Thursday with my mates like I used to in the past. I'm not able to sleep properly. I have to take medications on a daily, weekly basis. And then you start asking, how long has that been going on? Okay, it's been going on for 5 years or 10 years. And then if you're a 40-year-old guy and you say, okay, 10 years of your life, last 10 years, you've been struggling with this problem, which you haven't been able to do all these things which you love. That's a quarter of your life. And suddenly the sort of situation sinks in for the people, because they realize how much it's affecting the things that they love to do and how much they mean for them. And then suddenly you have buy-in, and then what happens after is then you have to be able to provide that plan, have that understanding of those layers, understanding of the performance plan. Okay, how do we get from here out? What is the next 4 or 8 weeks going to look like, so that in 8 weeks you're going to be playing squash? What can we do for that? So that's I find this is a very good example of how I find getting buy-in is that's one way. It's one way to do it, and I find it's just you need to get to the things that really mean a lot to the people, and that's one way.
That was a great example, because I felt the way you ask the question, you were actually indirectly helping the client to find his own motivation.
Exactly. So you make it
That's psychology.
intrinsic by doing this. Yeah, I'm not a psychologist, but I try to help people. So yeah.
It's a lot of psychology, yes.
Yeah, I find it's just you need to figure out something bigger than the problem, because the problem often is not motivating enough. You need to figure out what is stopping them from doing. And this can be applied to so many things in different fields as well. But lower back pain, like the pain is an easy example of this. So you can also bring it into many other fields of habits we might have, and so on and so on. So
that is people's skills.
It's a good framework.
Yeah, that is people's skills. Thank you for giving an example, an anecdote. It's
No
so
worries.
interesting. Well, people will see what performance coaches, as you said, it's much more than just training someone to be able to do, I don't know what, core exercise or endurance only. Thank you so much. Very interesting. You've also mentioned at the very beginning, which I really loved, also to promote global cultural awareness, how important it is. Even in your job as well, you can have clients from different countries, and the team can be full of people around the world, the team you are working with, and not all from Finland. How important is that in your work, global cultural awareness, which luckily you've got already instilled in your childhood because you could travel and live abroad? How important is that?
I think it's extremely important. Well, there's one thing about my job. I obviously work with one individual, but then like I would just speak about coaching in general.
Yes.
With people. I find it's extremely important because first of all, I think we need to realize that we are all different. We have our different past experiences. We have our histories. We have our cultures, where we come from, values, targets, purpose. We have all these things and we are all different. But at the same time, what I find is that where we often share a lot of similar things or similar habits is the fact that very often our weaknesses are our strengths overdone. So as an idea, I find that's very powerful, because let's say a weakness, or let's say a strength of attention to detail. It can be such a powerful thing. It's something that you can get obsessed about a topic. You go into the smallest detail, and you're able to produce the best understanding of a topic and create something new understanding on a science field or anything. You dig deep and you don't give up until every last stone has been turned and you find the answer. That can be so strong and powerful. But at the same time, the situations when when it goes too far, it takes too long to come to a decision. It takes far too long to come. You get this. You're waiting too long to get an answer. And for example, in fields like in sport, where often decisions have to be made quite fast, you just don't have the time to turn every stone. You don't have the time to figure out everything, and you have to be able to trust yourself before and say, okay, yes, this is the answer. So that's a classic example of a strength. Attention to detail, perfectionism in that sense is a good thing, but at some situations it goes too far and it slows you down. It makes you just not able to respond, and it sort of chokes you. So what I want to say about the cultural difference is that yes, we are different, but we have also very many similarities on how we function and how we how we should be understanding behavior. So this, I think this happens in every single culture. And it just liberates us to liberate a coach and a person himself to look at a topic like this, because suddenly you're not moralizing or judging somebody. You don't have to tell them that they are just slow. You're slow at making decisions. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that you have such an interest to make it perfect. You want to find out everything, and that in certain situations makes you a bit slow to decide. And we need to work on that. And it's it's not a problem. It's just the side effect of something that you're so good at.
Yes, it's not a problem. Yeah.
And I find that's something that's the realization of this, I find, has made dealing with people and discussing different problems with friends or colleagues or other or athletes, I find it makes it a lot easier.
It's I like it how you said it's not a problem, it's just different, or the way you deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, the other question is, we always talk when talking about performance. What does it mean to reach one's full potential? And as a human being, maybe you can explain in general, what is full potential? How much of that do we even use daily? It would be interesting to be aware of. If you could use percentage, I would like to know, are we even at half of it? And how far, especially in sports, especially the runners, and with the Olympics, when we wonder, some collapse and some can just stand at the end of the line. Is that the human potential we have? How much do we use of it? And how can I know, how can I really reach this full potential? And how can you see that, even as a coach, whether I'm using my full potential?
Now that is a big question. I think full potential is a very difficult word and difficult concept, because I think, yeah, we in Hintsa have this phrase that we use quite often, which is don't maximize, but rather optimize.
Oh, I like that.
And it basically points the direction that we just cannot be maximizing every single area. It's just not possible. That's not how life works. We don't have the time to be the absolute maximum best skydiver, the best Formula One driver, the best father, the best husband, the best everything. We don't have a unlimited time, so we have to be able to put our sort of spread our time into different interests and be at a best compromise. I think the best word is, what is the best compromise for you to reach the targets that you want to reach and things that are important for you. So you need to narrow down what is actually important for you and put the time on those things. That's what it really counts and what really matters. And in this helps, again, understanding I'm a very logical person, in the sense that you all probably already saw that from my layering, from how I sort of logically layer and try to understand performance in different areas.
Yeah.
And you need to have that under control and understand where performance comes from in being a husband or a father or an athlete in different sports, and then invest your time accordingly based on your interests. So that's what it comes down to, in my opinion. But just to continue, I think it's actually easier to probably answer when you are not at full potential. So in my opinion, I would say there's two key signs of that. And this applies to everybody in my opinion. So firstly, it's the fact that if you are unable to deal with your negative self-talk, I think it would be a complete myth to say that we don't have negative self-talk. Everybody has it. Everybody has a bad moment. Everybody has a bad day.
Yes.
Everybody gets this. There's a time when something difficult happens in our life, and it's not gonna be easy. But it's the ability to deal with that differentiates a lot of people, because then you're able to move on. You're able to turn from something that you cannot control into what you can control. You turn solution oriented. You have an awareness of yourself. You're able to understand, okay, what is happening right now? What is my mind telling me? Is it telling me sensible things, or is it just putting me down, telling me that I'm not good enough, telling me that I'm not mentally strong, telling me this and this and this? Those things have nothing to do with reality. You have to turn it into something that you can do. So first thing, unable to deal with your negative self-talk, I don't think you can be at full potential. And then the second one is if you're not physically fit. It's such a potent drug, exercise, and being fit. I find if there was ever a pill that gave the benefits of exercise, everybody would be on it. I mean, the best example is to look at what happens if you are not physically fit. And I'm not talking about, you don't have to be running a 3-hour marathon or 2 or 30 minutes, 10K or anything like that, but just have a reasonable level of fitness. If you're not, you're probably not sleeping well.
Yes.
At a young age, you probably start to get the lifestyle diseases, the blood pressure and the diabetes and all these things. You probably start to get some muscular pain. You have your back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain. You probably start gaining weight. You cannot do the life things that you enjoy. It's just physical fitness is such a strong thing. And if you're not fit, I don't think you can be at your full potential. At least you cannot sustain it. You might be for a little moment in time, but to sustain your whole say working career or your whole life, you will not be able to do that. So I think that's how I would explain it.
That's so interesting. And you've mentioned actually so many areas of emotional intelligence that must play a huge role in your job, whether it's this self-talk, self-managing, self-awareness, all areas of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, well, I think it's just whenever you deal with people, I think we all have this. Like I said, I'm not a psychologist, but I think we all, when we are dealing with people, we need to have this understanding of people, and it just helps us both get a win-win. We always want that when we're with people. You don't normally want to leave somebody hanging. You want everybody both wins. So that's what you're trying to achieve.
So beautiful, really so beautifully said. When we are dealing with people, and we are dealing with people, whether in the corporate world, in sports, wherever, we are dealing with people, and we should have at least a bit of, that skill if we want to be successful, whatever success means for every individual. Wonderful. Wow, that coming from you. Thank you so much. I hope people will believe that. Well, so to my next one, you mentioned, if we all have bad times, negative times, and we have this negative self-talk. Last year and still this year has been really, really difficult. COVID hit. How did that affect your work?
COVID, I mean, okay, first of all, COVID, of course, is horrible. No, I wish we never had to experience it and brought in disastrous things around the world. But in terms of my work in the big scheme of things, it didn't really affect it so much, because as much as there's some testing and different things like this and travel restrictions, but I found them still minor things. So it didn't affect my work in a whole so much. But what I could say is about COVID in general. And what it has done, it has shown again how we all just cannot control what happens around us. But what we can control is how we choose to think about it. What's our attitude towards it? So as much as I don't have a child yet, but I fully agree that it must have been very difficult for a lot of parents to have their kids at home because they couldn't go to school, and you're anyway spending time at home trying to work at home and have all these things, and you can't go to restaurants, you can't see your friends, and all these kind of things. And as much as they made life for all of us difficult, but at the same time, I find also a lot of good things came out of this. I ended up spending a lot more time with my wife. A lot of people spend a lot more time with their kids.
Yes,
I learned to make an extremely good pizza base. I made a pizza every week, and suddenly people probably learn to be better cooks. They probably learn to deal with their own mental health problems better because they had nobody to socialize with. So it's always, you go both directions, and for sure it was very difficult, but at the same time I think also a lot of good things came out of it. So
correct. I agree.
That's the way I like to look at it.
It's quite interesting. It says a lot about your personality. You see the positive side. It's nice. You just really mentioned the good side, as difficult and hard it is, but we have to also see the good side and the good things.
Yeah.
And now maybe let's just get out of F1 or sports, but maybe you have any message to give other leaders, because performance coaches can also be outside of sports. A performance coach, for example, this TV series, Billionaire or Billionaires, that hedge fund guy had also a performance coach, which was a psychiatrist. And whether it's COVID or any other crisis, what will you as a coach, and hopefully there are leaders who also employ coaches, because I always say they can't do everything alone. And at the moment, we have lots of lonely leaders at the top there. What will a coach, a performance coach for this leader, what will you recommend, or how will you lead, like, discussions, or how will you communicate with this leader how to handle crisis? So I'm really talking about leaders going through crisis in such a very complicated, volatile world we are living in. How will you lead a talk with such a leader? Because some just take out their paper and, oh, what are the steps we have to go through if there's crisis? Take, and that's it. But we know that mental health is playing a huge role. Loneliness, and loneliness not only in the bottom, but also loneliness at the top, CEO loneliness. How will a performance coach lead a talk, or what will you recommend or suggest with a leader in such a crisis?
Well, that's a big question. I guess it always depends on the situation and the person and the field and what is going on.
I just want to understand, like, how you lead such talks in a challenging environment, challenging time.
Well, I think one way to look at this is the following. So I can give an example from Formula One. So let's say there's been a mistake, or it can be a mistake or something, a very positive thing. So a great move, or can be in any sport, but so mistake or a great move. And then there's always two phases to that. There's the phase that's just before. So that's the information receiving phase. That's when how we perceive the situation before making the decision. So we read the situation, we try to understand it, and we basically pick up cues of what's happening right now, and then to build a picture of what we're going to do. And in Formula One, that happens extremely fast, because you're moving at speeds over 300 kilometers per hour. So you have, and you have objects around you moving and doing their fighting against each other, and you are reading the situation extremely fast. So that's one thing. That's one area where you can make a mistake. But then there's also the other area, which is the skill execution phase. So on that moment, then you decide to go for the move based on the information, but then you're doing it, and that's also in F1 extremely difficult when you're at this speed. So what I want to say is that I think whenever somebody's stuck, you need to be breaking down what happened to different skill sets. You need to understand, okay, where did it actually go wrong, or why was I actually able to do that magnificent thing? It's not just because I'm mentally strong, or because I'm so talented as a driver or a corporate or an athlete. It's because I did something right in the process. And I find it's always being able to go narrow down what specific skill allowed or made something happen. And the problem can be in the information phase. It can be in the skill phase. So I like to always break down things. And by doing that, you take control of the situation, because you realize that like I said, it's not just an empty concept somewhere. It's actually something you can work on, and it's not don't drama. It takes also the ego out. It might be the smallest thing, and we need to have some humility towards ourselves.
Absolutely.
On the fact that it's, like I said, it's not some empty idea of mentally being weak or something like that. It's just a small thing that on that moment went wrong.
And we don't know why we are stuck. And don't move. Yeah,
because often when you're stuck, then you start hearing the things that you start telling yourself the things that I mentioned earlier. So you tell yourself
the negative self-talk.
Exactly. And also on things that have absolutely no place. They have no sense of reality. So again, I'm not good enough. I'm never gonna make it. I'm not a good boss. I'm not a good coach. I'm not a good this and this. This has nothing to do with reality. You are there for a reason, and there's been some simple thing that has gone wrong. I think there's a colleague of mine said a fantastic quote that, was it a wrong decision, or was the decision based on the wrong and false information? So what I mean by that is that we rarely make wrong decisions on purpose, but we might just have read the situation wrong.
Yeah.
And for example, in sport, this happens in milliseconds.
Yes.
And so it's just a case of breaking down, understanding what went wrong or what went right, and learning from it and moving forward. That's the sort of one advice or one thought that I would leave.
Breaking it down. Well, that's why we have performance coaches. And people, this is why I thought it's so important to be here. People should really reach out. If you are stuck, if you are not good in something, reach out. There is someone who is specialized in that. Your weakness may be someone's strength. Reach out to Hinsa company, reach out to Antti. Well, Antti is not available, but reach out. And there is always a solution, because sometimes we are in and we don't see it and we are stuck and we just don't go forward. And you need someone to break it down. We all
I think we all need sometimes somebody with a bit of perspective to help us understand what has happened and give us the cues to how to move forward. Exactly. And not so that we're not too hard on ourselves. Yes. Hard work is needed, but it's just the role the luck plays sometimes is so big. I think we often forget that if something is not happening, it might not be your fault. You might be doing everything right, working super hard, but the door just doesn't open. But maybe there's some other door that then opens, so it's just luck is such a, it was Jason Fried, I've been thinking of in a podcast that I heard. He read it, he said it so well that I think people underestimate the role of luck. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't work hard, but it's still, you need it that the door opens. So
and when you mentioned at the beginning, you were lucky that Dr. Aki Hinsa approached you. I thought the same. Luck doesn't just come like that. You need to work also hard for it. So I think you for sure worked hard for it too, because there must be a reason.
I don't by no means want to say that you don't need to work hard. You 100% need to work hard. But then, like, say if my dream had been always to become a performance coach in Formula One, if that had been the thing I want to aim for, it might not have happened, because there's so few seats, there's so few places, there's not hardly anything, and then that there's a driver available who fits you. There's so many things that just might not happen. The world, it's just the door might not open, and it's not your fault. You may have done all the right things, and maybe something else that's, if you've done your work hard, you have a right structure, you have the right way of working and mentality, you wide knowledge, everything, something will open up. But whether it's that door, then that's a lot down to luck as well.
What beautiful message. Thank you so much. Hopefully this will be uplifting other people who will tune in. Thank you so much. Well, actually, you've mentioned so many important messages, but if there is someone out there, the future generation, future performance coaches, people who want to enter into this field, what one important message can you give them? What are the key skills they have to, by all means, bring in? Anything you can share with someone who wants to get into this field?
I
Maybe
think
key
it's
skills?
I think it's about building that idea for yourself of where does performance come from. So once you have clarity yourself on where you think performance comes from, and then you developing and you have skill sets on how to influence those different things underneath, and then I think there's no reason why you couldn't get to this business or succeed in any other sports field or on the corporate coaching world. So I think it's just understanding where it comes from and developing those skills inside to improve different performance elements in people. So I think that's a general answer, but I think it entails so many things and
yes, it entails so many things. You've mentioned at the beginning so many things. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I could ask more, but well, we have to come to an end. Well, we have a leaderboard, and we have some fun trivia questions, just, to put this whole thing on a humorous note and end it on a humorous note. My first question is, what are the 3 types of coaching styles?
3, they are autocratic, democratic, and holistic.
And I think Hinsa does,
we do very much on the holistic side.
On the holistic side.
We try to help people from a wide way, understanding what's going on.
I think it's becoming more and more important, isn't it? With all this mental health problems, very present topic. My second question is just a fun question, really. It's a trivia question. Okay. So you know it or you just guess. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
The name of which African animal means river horse? African animal.
River. Rhino.
Yeah.
Rhinoceros, no? Nearly.
H.
Hippo.
Yes. Hippo. Nearly. Yes, hippo. Exactly. And the last question is thinking fast. It's a 5-second challenge.
Okay.
And I thought, in celebration of the 25th Bond movie coming in 2 days, plus, Aston Martin plays a huge role in James Bond. Okay. So my question is focused on that. Name me, so you have to be fast. Name me as many James Bond film titles as possible.
Tomorrow Never Dies, Octopussy, Dr. No, Goldfinger, GoldenEye.
Wow. Super! You've got all. Wonderful, Antti. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Antti, do you drink coffee? You live so healthy.
I have too much energy already, so I don't need coffee. I drink tea.
Oh, wonderful. You drink tea. Well, then I don't have to ask you what will be your go-to coffee order.
No, I would. No. Yeah, I'm a tea drinker.
Thank you
I have
so
too much energy.
Thank you so much, Antti, to really take the time, although you are so busy, and after that dramatic weekend, being here and answering questions, it was really a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much.
No, thanks to you, Juliana. It was a pleasure. It was great. Very interesting questions.
It was my pleasure. Such a generous man. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care, Antti. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. For you out there, I hope you really enjoyed this insightful chat with Antti about what is behind the science of human high performance, especially in F1. If you feel my topics about lifestyle and etiquette and all the vital aspects of soft skills relate to you, please like, subscribe, click the bell, and you'll be alerted every time a new video is out. Thank you. Stay tuned.